Meeting to order. And I'm waiting for the screen to update. So Sonia and Jen are on Zoom. So we have a quorum. So that's the first action item. Did everybody get a chance to review the agenda, and are there any adjustments that need to be made?
I did not, in good honesty, do all that I should have in preparation. That's no surprise to anybody.
I didn't notice anything on the agenda about electric vehicles. I wondered if Max could just give us a little update
So
on
I'll
that.
add that. Did a search on electric vehicles the other day. They're getting very interesting. There's two charging ports in Rockland, and then I think you have to go to Damascotta to get the next charging spot. We have nothing in Waldenberg.
Thompson has one.
Oh, it doesn't show up on the map.
Yeah, a lot of them don't.
Yeah. Is it a, what do they call it? Like a class?
Creek.
It's
It's a level 2. Yeah.
Level 2.
I can talk about it more during that agenda.
Okay. All right. Good. Citizen comments?
Well, were the minutes, what happened with the minutes? Are they just being deferred or?
They're coming up.
Okay, never mind.
And I don't think we've approved the July minutes yet either.
Correct.
So it should be July and August here. But all right. So did everyone get a chance to review the July minutes?
I did have a chance.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes from July.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, the July minutes are passed, unanimous.
I'm abstaining because I'm being honest tonight.
George is abstaining. Jen, I assume,
Jenna has her hand up and Sonia has her hand up.
I assume that means you both approving.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and that takes us to the August 2nd minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the August 2nd minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. Can we have a motion to approve?
That is the last one.
Second?
Oh, second. Okay.
Be the first. Come on.
Yeah, I'll be first.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor?
Abstaining again.
Abstain again. George abstains. It's unanimous otherwise.
Yep, and I see Jen and Sonia raising their hands there. All right.
All right, chair report. Really don't have anything exciting. I could give you, in fact, it's next on the agenda. So John Martins was not able to join us today, but he did send an update for the COVID numbers. So we can do that. We had our Waldenberg food pantry today, which was busy as always. I don't have the numbers back yet, but typically we see somewhere between 120 and 150 families.
One of the funding sources is returnables that are left at the transfer station.
We occasionally we get some funding. I wouldn't call it. We get some funding from recyclables from the. We are one of the receiving charities.
Okay.
We're also, I guess I can give a little bit of an update. So we are reaching out to the town. We essentially have been self-funded forever. For the last probably 6 months, certainly since we ran the promotion to buy a van. So we ran a annual appeal last year to buy a van, and we managed to raise $60,000 and bought a brand new van, which is great.
Yeah.
And we use it all the time. We're delivering food with it. We're picking up food. It's been terrific. But the downside of that is that our day-to-day operations funding has been lagging every month. And so we are actually reaching out to the town, and we have a meeting set up on the 13th to see if we can get initially funding out of the, I always lose the name of the fund.
Philbrook Fund?
Right. So we'll see how that goes. I think long-term, we really would like to be on the budget, part of the budget, town budget, and go through the process of doing that. I don't think it's any secret that the facility we're at now is terrific, but we're busting at the seams. And the only way we can actually make it work is continue the drive-through way of doing it, which is essentially saying, you're going to get the food you're going to get. You don't get to pick, you don't get to shop, you don't get just things you want. We're just going to give you what we have and take it or leave it. And most food pantries, what the ideal is to actually have a shopping experience where folks can come in and just get the products they need, not a bunch of products they wouldn't need and don't need. And we can't do that in the building that we're in now.
Right.
It's a wonderful building. Our landlords have been just terrific, but and even they recognize that it's not a long-term solution for the pantry. So our real challenge is that not only do we need to get revenue for the month-to-month operation, we've got to get another capital fund going to start looking at monies to actually build something down the road. And that'll be our next appeal. So is that 5 years down the road? I don't know. I don't know when that is, but.
Have you thought about becoming part of the town's project that the town is working on with the?
Are you talking about the community center?
Yep, recreation and health and all that.
Right. So I did have a conversation with Julie, and there is a possibility that we could piggyback onto some of those things that are happening. I don't think anything's in place yet for us to be able to do anything concrete, but certainly that would be an ideal opportunity for us if that came to fruition. But we don't know where that stands actually. So
I'll have my town update.
you'll have your update. All right. So that's what I have on that.
And then COVID update, just
COVID update. So let me. Just get to this email quick here. Well, how can you get so many emails between?
If you ever made a political donation, you'll have lots of emails.
What's that?
If you ever have made any political contribution to anybody for any reason,
Oh,
you get lots of emails.
yeah, that is true. Okay, so here's John's update. We had a sizable drop in the number of tests provided, 169, and an increase in the positive case count by 17 to 23, causing the percentage of positives to rise to 13.77%. We have not yet received information on when we might get the new COVID-19 booster. More information will follow on our website when it is available. Vaccine.mainehealth.org will be your best bet in terms of scheduling. Our big push now is getting ready to deliver the influenza vaccine. We're doing it as a drive-through clinic in Damariscotta, Booth Bay Harbor, and Wiscasset. Dates and times will be listed in the Lincoln County News this week. The first clinic is September 24th. All right, and that's the update.
That's pretty early for the influenza vaccine, usually, or am I?
Saying September 24th.
Yeah, I thought it was usually mid-October.
Yeah.
Internally, we have it available as, well, I got mine 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah, or not 2 days ago, Friday, whatever day Friday was. But that was the first day it was there. So they stock up early, and then it takes a little bit to get out to the, these sort of clinic things. But Maine Health has had to get really good at setting up clinics quickly. So I think what's happening is we already have the tools. We already have all this infrastructure sitting there.
Infrastructure,
So
yeah.
it's just easier to fill the fridges and get the people taken care of.
Yeah, I wish John were here. I was going to ask him if there's any conflict between the influenza vaccine and the new COVID booster.
I heard on the from credible answer that you're good to get them both together.
Really?
Yeah. That there's no, they work on different mechanisms so that there's no.
Good to know.
That's a good point. Yeah, the flu's a live virus vaccine or a dead virus. There's some virus traps in it.
The mechanism is different. So
Yeah, the other is mRNA, so it just tells you what
Yeah.
to react to.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if it was the vaccine or the booster, but I remember getting a second shot at the same time, and I thought it was influenza, but it might have been something different. But at the pharmacy, they did two, like I think a booster and I thought it was influenza, but maybe not at the same time. So we can definitely do that. Okay, and Ruben, that takes us to the broadband update.
All right, so for broadband, there's not a lot of new information. I'm working on evolving a document that I sent to some of you that's turning into sort of a terms and definitions and the beginnings of a discussion for a vision statement on where to go with broadband. Bob's helping. Thank you for your help, Bob, on a version of that. My intent with that is to build it out so we can start a new discussion later on what we want, why, how much to get there, and how we pay for that or how it's funded. And then inside of that, we'll want to do things like set up scopes. I see two sort of competing scopes right now in town. There's remaining unserved, and there's people that want to upgrade what they have. And I think it's important to lay out the block structure for that work and how we want to approach that. So I see that taking at least another couple months. In November, the FCC is supposed to have a new updated map that's a lot more detailed. Instead of by census block, which is wildly inaccurate, it's a lot more granular. It's not per address, but it's a lot closer to that. And hopefully by the time that comes in, we'll also be able to compare that information to whatever survey data we get back. You know, when that's hit, people process that. Screen went to sleep. Yeah, that's everything I have, unless there's other questions.
All right.
Just if I may, just a comment. I'm reading the master switch, which you put me onto. And there's this parallel between early telephone service and what we're going through right now with fiber optic.
I'll bet.
Back in the day, people were setting up their own local telephone companies because Ma Bell wasn't interested in a national service.
Yeah.
And they got to the point where they were threatening the big guys because they realized they had to change the way they were doing things. And the cycle for fiber is the same.
Oh yeah.
It's virtually no different. We're going through the same stuff with fiber as we did with the telephone.
When I was a kid,
Deja vu all over again.
when I was a kid, the emergency phone number I was supposed to call if I had a problem was the lady down the street, and her phone number was 23.
Wow.
Josie Walker, 23, if you get an emergency.
So, and that's just anyone that wants a paper copy of that book, email me. I will give you one. If you don't like to read physical paper, or you don't get joy from it. Well, I read documents for work all the time. I'm 1,000 pages a week just on manuals and new tech and all that stuff. So books are just no joy. I love Audible. And the guy that does the audiobook for that takes what can be a pretty dry read, makes it an okay book. So that and Fiber by Susan Crawford are like necessary reading if you want to. It makes it a lot easier to get excited and wrap your hands around some of these problems, because you can hear one of us talk about it all day, but it's different when you can engage your own brain on the issue. Yeah. Those are two really good books. I also donated a few copies to the library for both of those, so you can get them there too.
Awesome.
The other things I just want to add on for broadband is one, Ruben, I feel I saw your name in the list, but Lincoln County Regional Planning is having their meeting on the 13th.
Yeah. Why did I have 14th in my head? I told Mary Ellen I would go to that. Okay. That's why I started writing that document I started writing. And it's really one of the reasons it seemed disconnected. I was just emptying my brain into this Word document of what do we want? How do we want to get there?
All right. So
it's going to be very different talking to the town here and talking to the county over
Yep.
there.
And thank
Yeah.
you for going to that, because Bob's probably going to be doing the select board meeting that night, and I'll probably be doing the select board meeting and then Greenman's planning board meeting that night as well. So
So
I know I'm having fun.
just for the edification of everyone, so there's a county level meeting where as a Lincoln County, everyone needs more broadband. And so they've been looking at it at that sort of higher level. And so this is, there are no ISPs that are going to be there. This is people that are on boards of communities or community leaders, volunteers, whatever, are all going to this place to talk about what they have in place, what's coming, how could we get there, how could we put whatever resources we have together to get towards that. I know there was a question asked from someone at Lincoln County about ARPA funding, which we used for our services that a lot of our surrounding towns also use. If you think I'm not going to mention that, you're wrong. I'm going to be very nice, but that's where Waldenberg had to put its money. We're also the Route 1 corridor between a lot of those towns. And that's not to say, hey, we're holding this over your head, but like, hey, we're in your way, we can help you. But keep in mind where we've had to put our other resources. And the rest of it will be stuff you've heard me say before. I'm just going to make sure everyone's aware of what technologies have what abilities. You don't want to be, we want to be provider agnostic. People get mad at Charter, or they'll get mad at LCI, or they'll get mad at whatever their provider is. That document writing has a very black and white. This is what you can buy. This is what the money gets you. So the other goal is to make sure they're aware of that. So if you're going to make that choice, you're going to put resources into any project, know what you're asking for, know what you're trying to build. And I think the people that I know that are there, I think understand that. Evan's a good example. Evan Goodendowski, I think I said right. He's doing a lot of good stuff in the towns in his area. He's doing that for the county. Mary Ellen seems like she's paying attention and reading stuff too. So I think it could be a really good meeting.
The other thing I'll just mention is that we're talking with Consolidated Communications to see what potential there is for Fidium. That's their fiber wing of coming to the area. I think Nobleboro was someone we spoke to who said, you know, the reason they're not able to come through the area is because Waldenberg has to upgrade. So I guess we're just seeing if that was me on a more regional level, seeing if that's going to happen, whether we do anything or not. But
and I think there's going to be some synergies there. There's a world where Consolidated comes through and builds through Waldenberg, or at least parts of it anyway. If that happened, the conversation we need to have is, hey, while you're here, the areas you don't want to build in, what's the price tag for that? Because we would need to consider that too. And if we can get ahead of that before they start rolling trucks, we can get the most efficient build done.
The other side of that coin, though, is, and you pointed it out, you gave me the link to the Fidium site. They're encouraging people to sign up, and there's no commitment. You're not putting money down, but you're indicating an interest. And if the concentrations are such that they can look and say, whoa, we've got 500 people along that road who want fiber.
Are interested. Yeah.
We'll build there. I mean, that's what they're looking for. I just wish people would go on there and sign up, Fidium.com, because they're in the southern part of the state, I believe, fairly concentratedly now.
They're pretty dense. Fidium, and I'm going to try to burn as little time as possible. So if you can smack me, go for it. Fidium doesn't have to build in a straight line. So Waldenberg, Consolidated owns a decent amount of the poles. I couldn't tell you the percentage, but they own a lot of the poles. And that's important for permitting and attachment. The cable company, LCI, anyone that's not Consolidated has to do extra paperwork and pay a fee to attach to those poles. They don't. They also have a central office in most towns. So we aren't relying on the internet connection in Rockland to get Fidium necessarily to come through here. They could do it from the CO downtown. They're going to want to have multiple routes, at least I would assume. Any fiber carrier wants more than one in, more than one out. And that'll be a question we'll need to see if they'll answer, Max, is what they want to do down Route 1. One of the things I don't like about the fiber on Route 1 is it's a third party. A lot of that is owned by First Light, which they don't sell internet. They sell connectivity for internet service providers to transit across, and they happen to connect schools and stuff, but it's a completely different business model. So maybe that's useful to Fidium, or maybe they want to build a backbone over that. They might not tell us that because then you get into infrastructure stuff and all that. But their network build out would more than likely actually start where that CO is. And we should ask them that too, so I can We'll see if I'm right or just talk too much. It'll be one of the two.
Oh,
But in a lot of towns, they start near where their central switchboard is because they've already got fiber there. Once you have a couple strands, you can turn up incredible speeds on the same medium in those buildings.
so
All right.
hopefully we'll be able to get that. The one last thing I want to talk about on broadband.
You need TIF time, remember?
I know, and this is unfortunately stuff that was developing that I didn't anticipate. So the survey that we've been talking about and been working on, I originally thought that it was going to be released in July when the tax bills went out, but then the tax bills weren't ready in July. They're going to be ready in September. So I had it ready for September, but now the tax bills aren't going to be ready to be sent out until later in September.
Oh, Jesus.
So it keeps getting kicked down the road at this point. I guess and looking at the survey, there really was just one big question, and that's just if people are kind of satisfied with the speeds here in Waldenberg and want us to pursue upgrading it, do we still want to have this survey sent out in tax bills, or do we want to have just one or two questions put as a non-conforming question for the ballot in November?
I think your capture rate could be a lot higher on the ballot.
That's because it's going to be the governor's race.
The challenge would be the wording on the questions.
I know.
It'd be short and
Well, and it wouldn't be the whole page that we've been working on. It would just be one or two questions.
right, A and B.
Yeah.
That kind of depends on what your purpose for, what your desire or hope for the survey information was. But it doesn't mean that if you have a couple of questions that are really crucial to get answers for now, it doesn't mean that that survey can't go out later. If you need the data, want the data. Depends on what you're going to use all that for.
What is the desired outcome? Again, I've been away, I've missed a lot of meetings, is to find out if the town will commit to an investment.
Yeah. That's what I thought the survey was about in the beginning.
That's what I picture too. Is there an appetite? Is there a willingness for the town to fund some amount of bill to get this problem solved, to get that connectivity out?
If you put it onto a ballot, you pretty much have to have a number, I would think. Otherwise, it's.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing.
And the other challenge is if it's on the ballot, are you insinuating that you're going to make it available for every citizen in the town?
Well, I think the only way you could, the question, I guess you could ask in any way, responsibly, I think it would have to be. I think you'd have to say, the purpose of this bond would be to build, to get internet everywhere. I think you would even need to go as far as, do you have to identify individual addresses that couldn't be part of that?
Yeah.
And I can only think of one or two houses. There's a large house, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he must have a half mile of dirt road to a very large house. I can't see any residents of the town being very happy that they're paying to trench fiber all that way to that one address. Do we need to look at that? And
So
yeah, Jen.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves here with a question on the ballot? Usually we put questions on the ballot when we actually have something solid for people to relate to, a project or something. Are we jumping the gun on the ballot thing since we don't have anything, and we know that there's both federal and state money coming down the road still, and we don't have a clear conception for people to even wrap their brains around?
It's a fair point.
Well, there is one question on that survey that people can, I think, connect with, and that's the question about, should we apply for a planning grant to advise us on how best to shift from cable and copper to fiber? I mean, that's the question.
And do you need public approval to apply for a grant?
No, it's more to get the pulse.
It's a clever way to
It's a non-binding question.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is what we did back in 2020 with the community center, the medical arts building on the same place as the parcel, 80 Gray. What else? What were some of the other big questions back in 2020 we were asking? Sylvania, we asked about Sylvania back then.
Yep.
We had like a whole page for 8 questions just for all these things. We wondered, what do you think?
Feel?
Yeah.
I don't think that one necessarily obviates the other. I think we ought to maybe ask a couple questions that are on the survey, put them on the ballot, but I do think we ought to do the survey as well, because there's a lot of other stuff in the survey that gives us background information we wouldn't otherwise have.
When did we do our last broadband survey?
2015.
I was gonna say that was.
And we don't think that's useful in any
That
way.
was 8 years ago. No,
No.
It was so
reconnected.
different.
We've added hundreds of people that didn't have access before that.
Yep.
The whole nature of getting your TV shows is changing.
Then you
Yep.
also have all the people who moved in town,
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
before we even had Old Augusta Road lit up.
Yeah.
right?
We did the survey before that happened.
And I think part of the reason the survey is being asked is because if you were to say how much of Waldenboro is connected to broadband, if you're looking at the federal standard, that's maybe 97, 98%, I'd say, poked up.
I think that's a reasonable number at this point.
If we're saying how much, I mean, the main state standard, it's none until LCI decides to do 100 symmetrical service. Yeah.
So as far as the state's concerned, we
We have nothing
got zip. Yeah.
Well, only in terms of applying.
for main grants.
If you're building something new,
Yeah.
that may be. So this might merit its own meeting, going through all the technical stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe we can chat sometime. There's no secrets here. So I get a bunch of incredibly boring questions
Yeah.
that I think we need to identify and go down.
But given that we're going to be voting on November 11th and we have to get the ballot ready, do we have time to do that?
I really like I'm really attracted to the idea of that kind of data capture. If we ask the right questions, if we can ask questions that steer clear of, we don't know what costs are. So we probably can ask, would you support a bond? We can find out, do you have what you need to work currently or something like that.
I think if we're boiling it down to one question, it's the one Bob just pointed out. That's pretty much at the end of saying, are you fine if we just apply for planning grants to determine if we actually need grant money at this point to do a new network?
That's the perfect getting the temperature question.
And it's not a big investment. So you would think people would be,
And it does get us access to the tools we need. There's people, that's all they do. And that's
Now, my only concern is, does that kick the can down the road again? So in other words, if we come back and say, wow, goodness gracious, we really do need to do something, do we have to wait another cycle before we can move forward?
Right now, there is also the main connectivity authority. They sent an email to us today about all these new resources that are going to be available to towns, including RFPs and other models that towns can use. I'll be attending that webinar, I think, next week. So it is a bit of kicking the can down the road, but we can still start preparing for when the results are in, if that makes sense.
We could also do the survey itself at the polls, at a table or something.
We could hand them
Just
out.
ask people to take the survey after they vote.
Take this with you.
Put that question on the ballot, that one question,
Yeah.
put it on the ballot and get that response.
That might have them thinking too. Maybe they'll be more likely to fill the survey.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Patty, Sonia, do either of you have anything you want to add into this?
My only question is, and I know this has already been discussed in prior meetings, is had there been any discussion about a public utility district versus going with an established corporate provider?
That was
Because of my understanding is long-term, your rates go way down.
that was discussed briefly early on when we were doing the survey, and that was something I feel we're putting to the side for now, and that would be determined in the planning grant.
Okay.
Because
If they look at that.
It's an incredibly good question.
We did ask that question a long time ago, and the district had no interest in taking it on at that point. Now that may have changed, but it's worth asking.
and if we do an RFP in the future, if this is something where we do end up pursuing in the future, so that would be one of the questions we note in an RFP of give us the general idea of what you're going to do. And here's this alternative option. Can you make a public utility for us where they'll build out, or it's a dark fiber network or similar to what Bremen has right now. So We have discussed it though. Sonia, did you have anything?
No, this is the only other thing I have a concern about putting something on the ballot that's not a vote for a specific item type thing. It shouldn't be a test for a survey. That's just like a principle, out of principle. And I still don't think we know enough to put something on the ballot. And if we don't have to have a vote on it in order to do it, what is it, the investigator, I can't remember what you said it was, what you call it, to do an investigation.
Planning grant.
A planning grant. If we don't need that approval, I don't know if we need to put that on the ballot. If you're going to pass the ballots out at the election day, but you'll probably have mailed those ballots out ahead of the survey, not the ballots, the survey by the time the tax bills are going out, and you'd have your answers then too.
Are we talking about mailing it?
Well, that was the original idea, to have it with the tax bills, but it just keeps getting delayed and delayed.
So what we're talking about now potentially is a mailing of just that. What does a mailing cost to?
I've always had to get an ask grant every time we've done these surveys, and that was about $2,000.
Yeah.
So Max, the difference in the response, if it goes out in the tax bill at that, you said end of September, which is like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Right.
The difference in the potential response between that or handing out a survey for people to take with them after they vote and ask them to return it. What is that what you're thinking about? Is that the response might be better if it's handed out when people are voting?
Part of what I'm thinking is that I don't even know if the tax bills are actually going to be out in a few weeks. It might be out by the time the elections pass, for all I know.
Oh.
But let me ask this. Does the committee want to actually ask the residents if they want us to pursue a planning grant? Is this actually something we want? Or do we just want to apply for a planning grant?
Why not just apply for
The reason
it? We already know the public's on side from our last survey. I mean, you might say, oh, we've added people, whatever. Come on. We know the gist of that last survey was that the population of Waldenberg is very interested in that time at pursuing.
George?
Well, at one point, and when I was saying it would be a good way to take the temperature, it sounds like we already know the temperature.
Well, there's one other aspect to it though, and that is if we have a percentage, it could strengthen the application for the planning grant.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can quote some numbers, say 90% of the Waldenberg residents want this grant, is that might give it support, or is that immaterial?
I guess we can just check with Island Institute to see if it is something that would help with the application, because I think the other reason we've been kind of kicking the can down the road on this one was because they weren't going to have funds until October. I don't remember the conversation too well. I think it was October.
A lot of these pieces have been moving targets. I heard, Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there's an ethical question.
Right.
Is adding that to the ballot ethical? It's not, it's not a thing that people are actually controlling.
Right.
We're using it as an opportunity to get a data point. And that's why I like it, but I'm not experienced enough to know if there's a reason.
Is it a wrong thing to do? Yeah.
If it's not, can we pass out the people who volunteer to take it, but rather than mailing that survey out, hand it out, at the front door when people are leaving.
Please fill this out.
And if you could just have someone take count of how many people took it, and then later see how many people sent it back, that would give you some kind of measure for your take rate of people that came through.
Or another idea, sorry, not to,
No, it's all
like, how people, the pollsters, or there's people at tables outside the door as you exit the voting booth, have someone set up a table and ask them, or do you support this as they're leaving? Can you do that? Is that legal?
Yeah, that's as long as they're asking the questions after the people have voted, then yes, that's legal.
Okay, that would be another solution instead of passing out the paper, which they may or may not fill out. You could ask them at that time. That's another option, and that's not putting it on the ballot which would mean a definite action. That's what, because you vote for something that, you know, and if they don't have enough information, even though it's planning, it's part of a process that you're working on and you haven't concluded that process yet. That's what I'm thinking.
I do think there's precedent.
Oh, we've done it a lot.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. And again, it's not binding. And it's indicated as such on the ballot. So
but the difference on those other projects were that those had
They had more concrete information.
solid information. Yeah. I could go in and read on the ballot and I could say, oh, okay, I understand what this is about.
Perhaps, I mean, if I'm understanding where the temperature is at, we can have the surveys released, just getting the polls from everyone else. But I think if no one has an objection, I could still look into the planning grants that Highland Institute is going to give out, and we could still get it prepared. And unless there's some earth-shattering, horrifying results on election day, we can probably just pursue the planning grant between now and then.
We got several questions adrift here, but back to one of the early ones, the survey was carefully crafted to give more information than just kind of a yes, no. So if you're going to hand something out outside the door, it would be that survey. And it fits on one page. I mean, it's not the intimidating kind of survey. So I think handing them out at the door is fine. At the door is fine, and it doesn't cost $2,000.
I really like that part. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think your idea, Max, is good. That to start working towards a planning grant.
What percentage of citizens come to vote? Not early vote, or actually come in person?
This is a government race.
Yeah. I mean,
what percentage?
Well, during the general election, it was what, 75, 74%, I think.
in June, we had like 800 people voting.
It's a big deal this year.
But in
It's gonna be
November,
gaps.
it's always a bigger turnout.
Yeah.
Could be double that.
I'd say probably 2,000.
Yeah.
Safe.
Yeah.
That's a good strategy then, in my view.
So can I just summarize for a second?
Please summarize.
Yeah, I'm good at that.
If you get the tax bills out in the next couple of weeks, it would be nice to put the survey with the tax bills.
100%. Agreed.
If there's going to be a delay getting the tax bills out, then we ought to be standing at the door after people vote and give them the survey and ask them to please fill it out.
What's the deadline, Bob, in your view? What's the latest that the tax bills going out we would include?
Well, we have to pay our taxes on November 15th. So I usually see the tax bills latest first week of October, but there's stuff going on. So
yeah, and that's why I say, Daryl, I can't.
No, I get it.
Is the stuff, if I may ask, is the stuff going on, us old people trying to get our taxes fixed?
Yeah,
That's part of it.
There's tax stabilization, there's the revaluation going on in town. There's quite a few things going on for Daryl right now. So that's why I can't guarantee it's even going to be out in September.
I really like having a plan B then.
Yeah, that plan B would be to hand it out at full.
So
I like that.
What I'm saying is put a deadline. Say if the tax bills aren't out by October 1, then we're switching to plan B.
Then we'll talk about it during the October meeting.
Right. But I'm just saying, put a deadline on it.
Yeah. So next meeting, if they're not out, we'll bring that up and discuss if someone can be there to volunteer.
Is there not money available to just mail the survey by itself?
I'd have to talk with Julie on that one.
I just don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Well, yeah, as I say, I've usually had to get some grants in the past to pay for those types of bike releases.
It's not a non-issue to mail them. It's not. I mean, it's still
a couple $1,000.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, the Sylvania survey is going out at the same time. I mean,
Right.
if it goes in the tax bill, it'll be with the Sylvania survey.
Perfect.
Right.
So.
All right. So let's hope it goes out. And if it doesn't, we'll discuss our options in our next meeting.
We'll talk
Is
about
that
it in
fair?
October. Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. Well, you guys, that was a lot of great questions from everyone.
And Max, that takes us right to the town update.
All right.
First thing, planning board items.
So in August, on 122 Atlantic Highway, Applecroft Catering was approved for a minor event center. So there's Shane McGarvey saying it's going to be very similar to what Topsail Farm has, where it's camp, where there's 10 campsites, people can rent that out and have weddings there. He envisions it's only going to be a summer event type area.
Where is it again?
122, if you were to go towards Nobleboro and you've just passed Dow Furniture, the farm that's on the right.
Up on the hill. Yeah.
Up on the hill.
Yeah, beautiful up there.
Yep. And I did a little site visit of it. Just beyond the little tree line is where all the activity is pretty much going to happen. So I'm excited for that. There was a gravel pit also for that same day for that same meeting at 192 Simon Road. That's been tabled. It's going to be tabled for quite a bit due to the responses to that meeting. But for the upcoming meeting, we have a pre-application for East Ridge Mobile Home Park. They want to remove a condition that was placed on their site plan back in 2002. It's just a pre-application. It's just the board getting a pulse to see if Fred's good to come to actually make an application. And the second is an actual formal application for CDK cabinet makers to move into 17 Friendship Road.
Is that the storefront that Fertile used to have?
Probably. It's the one, you know, the little pedestrian path that can access Worcester Park?
Yes.
It's the building on the right.
Yeah, okay.
And that was a cricket here.
On the right, looking down.
Yes. If I'm looking.
It's where Fernald's was.
Okay. So it was.
And it's a furniture making company?
He makes, yep, he makes cabinets and furniture.
It's not the company that's in the
Thompson Community Center in Union.
maybe it is.
It is.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yep.
Is he going to have a storefront there too for the furniture?
That was my question.
Nope.
No showroom?
Nope. People can look through the window, but he's making it on the ground floor, and he's doing the spray finish on the basement, in the basement.
Ooh, be interesting.
Buying the whole building?
He's leasing right now.
Will noise be an issue?
I've listened to a video where he had the equipment running in the center, and it was actually a very nice little hum, a lot quieter than this cricket. And he's also going to have some additional walls between him and Narrows Tavern. But it's going to be up to the board to determine whether it's good or not.
And then if he's doing finishing, I would worry about odors,
Fumes and stuff.
coming through.
He mentioned that. He showed a video of what that spray room is going to look like as well. And there's going to be a ventilation system that's going to point downwards in the basement.
I'm not sure this is appropriate, but it seems like odd use of a storefront in downtown.
He said he's looked at all these different spots where he would like to be in town, and this was the one that it's pretty much the only one that works.
It's not exactly the same, but there was a furniture maker up in Union, right on the common. And it seemed the most natural thing to drive up there and walk in and check them out. So
No,
it's kind of cool.
it could be very,
Yeah.
You might sell stuff you didn't even know you were gonna.
It's way better than an empty building.
Yeah.
All right.
And there might be some more stuff in October, but we'll find out.
Sylvania updates.
As Bob said, we're hoping to have a survey released soon with the tax bills, or at this point, the election. And there's been some cut trails down there already to at least get to the water pump. So there's a good start to what could be a trail system down there.
Is the slab still considered a solar opportunity?
It's still, yep, so the Sylvania Questionnaire is going to ask about what people would like to see at the Sylvania site itself, as well as the Hoff's house.
Yeah.
So with the Sylvania site, do you want to see solar? Do you want to see some commercial stuff? Like, what were some of the things like utility battery there, warehouse?
Right, battery storage, yes. Solar.
Or even just leaving it alone, let nature take its course there.
Yeah.
And then with Hoff's house, do we just want to lease it out? Do we want to demo the building? Do we want to sell the whole parcel to someone else? Or do we want to lease it out to a nonprofit or something?
Does that reach the river?
Yep. Both parcels reach the river. It's almost 50 acres total.
With both of them?
With both of them.
How much waterfront?
2,000 feet?
There's a lot of water.
We should be able to do something spectacular with that. You would think.
I would think, yeah.
Waldenberg jet ski rentals.
Yeah, that'd be the dream.
Only when the tide's in.
Yeah, but that's all I can think of right now for Sylvania.
Okay. That takes us to any other points on either of those items? Questions? No? Okay, good. So it takes us to our favorite topic, which is the TIF district.
So I hope you all got my amendments as well as the link to show what projects are eligible uses for a TIF.
I read that. I mean, there's a little section at the very end that says what's not covered, and it's basically civic buildings and, skating rinks.
I know, it's a weird.
Isn't it weird?
It's
almost like everything's okay except
Swimming pool.
these two things.
You can't have swimming pools.
Oh yeah, swimming pools was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a shame.
No recreational facilities.
Which is a shame because it would have been great to capture the 80 gray school transformation and then, put that into the 80 gray fields for improvement.
You could have the demolition.
Well, yes, we won't have to use the TIF money. The town doesn't have to pay for the demolition of 80 gray. That's going to be coming through the state. But this is for if the Haas's house, for example,
right,
people would like to see that demolished. We don't have to try and scrounge for a grant or the general fund.
Right.
Or if we get a tax acquired parcel and it's a building that's beyond repair, we can have that demoed. But I didn't know if there were any other amendments or items to note for those who don't have it with them. The main amendments are: one, Sylvania and a Hoff's house would be removed for now. And this is so we can add it in back later so that the value of the parcel can be brought down to 0.
Right.
Because right now it's saying we have to make up that $550,000 throughout the entire area because we didn't anticipate we were going to get it back then, but now we do.
Yeah.
So we're a bit in the hole on that one. So we haven't actually received anything in the TIF funds for now. So we remove those 2 parcels and add those in hopefully in June or whenever the Sylvania site will have a master plan ready. And other than that, there's a record keeping item for the industrial park because American Unagi, the lot 10-5 wasn't created back then. So this is more record keeping saying 10-2 and 10-3 had parts of their parcels split off, and that's why we have 10-5. So it's
but they are in the TIF.
It's all in the TIF.
Yeah.
So unless
there's a paperwork.
Right. So unless 10-5 is using any land that wasn't from 10-2 or 10-3.
It's all encompassed.
Then we're good on that. That's just record keeping. And then the third item is just updating the project list. And that's why I say if anyone has a project item they want to include, now is the time to say we want to add this project.
I don't know where it falls because I haven't read your anyway. The railroad people stopped into our office a couple of days ago. I guess they were here at a meeting. I wasn't. A train went by with 21 cars today. They're aggressively trying to create freight business. It's never made sense in the past, but if there was a siding someplace, I don't know. It just seems like it's not a skating rink for sure, but I'm intending to talk to this guy from the railroad and just say, well, what is it that you are willing to do? I mean, it's a big investment for a railroad to put a, the thing that lifts the containers onto them.
Yeah.
But if there's such a thing as what amounts to LTL freight, maybe there's some kind of a siding opportunity for inland rail.
I think that's a great idea to look into that, George.
I believe,
yeah,
the actual construction. Let's see. Yes, we'll see. Okay, well, I don't see that. Well, you can discuss, and I'm quickly looking over the projects.
I was just going to say that there's been a huge increase in freight movement in Maine. And it's because they've had to divert some of the traffic south of us because they can't handle it. There's just so much of it. So they're moving it into northern Maine and moving it down the line. I don't know how long that's going to last. Nobody does, but it certainly provides motivation for people to look at it.
Well, rail is a great idea. The reason it has never really caught on fire in Maine, it seemed like, anyway, everybody drives someplace. I mean, the distances aren't conducive for high-speed rail. But if the freight companies were creative, it does seem like there's ways they could compete with trucks.
Yeah.
Also, you have that deep water port up in Searsport. So there is stuff stopping in there that's just usually going north. You never know.
So George, I'll check with Tina Mullins up at the state. I think item 3 in our existing TIF might cover that, because that's talking about construction of new roads, parking areas, and other improvements, which include engineering improvements in the actual construction. So that might be something, but I'll check with her on that. Okay. But that's a good project example.
Does it hurt to mention specific infrastructure items like railroads?
Doesn't hurt. But you're talking about improvements associated with, we're not building a brand new railroad.
No, but it's the infrastructure related to using it.
Right. No,
Capitalizing on it, yeah.
Yeah.
But it only makes sense if there's an industry in the park that has that kind of volume of heavy material that needs to be moved.
That's the core question. For years I've not even considered the rail, because a train car holds 5 trucks. And there's nothing we're selling 5 trucks at a time or buying, nor anybody else in the park, unless there's a whole lot more eels than I think.
And they're bigger than you think.
Right. But it is certainly within the scope of human endeavor to figure out how to get one of these 5 truckload boxes with wheels and subdivide it, or have freight consolidators do something. It seems like someone should be able to figure that out. And if they have, I want to find out.
So,
yeah.
Well, wouldn't it attract businesses that would use it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the next thing we're going to get into here, but that was one of the things I listed is if you're going to have rail out there, you could have a distribution center out there.
But when we go intermodal to the West Coast, it used to be we could ship a truckload to the West Coast for, say, $4,000. It's now about 7 or 8. And if we go intermodal, which means I think at this point you take a box to Lewiston, they put it on the train, and then when they get to Chicago, they put it on a different train. And there's a lot of costs associated with the logistics. And those logistics stem from the freight on either end that isn't on rail. So if one end of the transaction didn't have a long truck ride, you could begin to get transportation of goods down.
So I will include,
conceivably.
So I'll include costs associated with utilizing the trail or the railroad system. Because what Patty was getting at, the example I was thinking of was American Steel down in West Bath made that massive investment for the warehouse, and they're only serving BIW essentially.
Yeah.
But it's right there, and it's making good use of that rail system. So Waldenberg might be one of those examples for the future.
Yeah. Fisher Plow, there's all kinds of things that leave by truckloads.
Mm-hmm.
It could be one of those things that attracts industry.
Right.
Is what you're saying, really.
Exactly. because it would be right next to the industrial park.
And we're central mid-coast, and if you're not on the interstate, you only have Route 1 to transport things up and down the coast.
Well, the passenger rail service is likely going to, I mean, they're going to be in Wiscasset, Newcastle, Damerscott, well, not Damerscott, but Wiscasset, Bath, Newcastle, Rockland. So, and there's not too much area for industrial and commercial. Those stations are going to make there.
For the sake of the moment here,
Right.
It is not what I would not consider it attractive to Waldeboro to have anything going on that needs 5 truckloads coming or going. I mean, that's like, I don't want that.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they could figure out how to do the equivalent of load consolidating so that different people could bring their truckload to Waldeboro, slide it in the corner of a rail car. I don't know. It may just be laughable in the railroad's eyes, but.
Well, and that's what I mean. With where the railroad is, with where the train is going to stop throughout the mid-coast, I don't imagine a lot of commercial activity going to all these other spots in the mid-coast, except Rockland, maybe Bath.
Yeah. So
Waldeboro might be that sort of central spot where people bring it.
You bring your truck down and they put it on the train.
Exactly. So we can look at that.
One of the areas where I used to work had a prefab bridge construction company. The train stopped right there. They loaded their stuff on there on and off, depending on whether it was materials coming in or product going out. It was a fairly large facility, but not horribly so.
If you look at if you're driving up North Noblesboro Road and you look over at the gorgeous building that you can see from North Noblesboro Road, it's got ugly doors that were put there because there was a siding at one point for the candy factory. They took it up. I mean, that never finished. Anyway, it was not out of the question to think about using a train at the candy factory when it was a candy factory.
All right, well, I'll put that in, and I'll double check with the state's TIF people first, just to see if what we have would already be fine, but I'll make sure to include that in the amendments. Are there any other additions or items people would like to remove from the proposal?
It's pretty wide open.
I kind of had a thought. I was thinking for the Economic Development Committee, we're coming out with ideas to try to attract business to Waldeboro. Had you thought in terms of a gimmick? Like, you know, like in the Midwest, when people were first traveling in cars, they'd stop to see the world's largest frying pan or the giant ball of, not in that sense of the gimmick, but I had this one idea because we have these tidal estuaries and we're limited as to like boat depth, right? But the same thing in South Thomaston where I was living before I moved here, but I had an idea of having a tourist thing where it would be like a plexiglass tunnel for students and visitors, and you could go on high tide, be under the water and on the mud flats, and you could see stuff. I don't know if it's a feasible idea, but some kind of a thing like that's an attractive thing to bring people in. But something like that, I don't know if that qualifies for a TIF or not, but you were talking about stuff like that, things to invest in, you know.
I think I thought there was something in here about tourism. Like
Brunswick has Magnetic Hill.
That's right. And the reversing waterfall.
That's real. Magnetic Hill, right?
Oh, it does.
South Thomaston has that. It has the tide stops and then it just immediately goes right under the Gig Bridge. If you're down there by the Gig store, that's a tide. It stops. It fills the march, and people gather around to go there. But we seem to have like a better parking options at the public landing. And I don't know how deep it gets there or how far to build into it, but you know, it seems like it. But I was thinking in terms of something like that, you have to have a draw.
Last time I saw a plexiglass tunnel, it was in Jaws 3. So I don't think we want to do that.
So I'll look more into the project list for tourism attractions. Is that roughly what you're aiming at, Sonia?
Yeah, I was wondering if it fit under ecological teaching stuff, because like teachers could bring the students at high tide and see what kind of plants and animals are in an estuary when the tide is high, migrating fishes, things like that.
I think that might, I mean, I'm probably going to be splitting hairs when it comes to projects, but I think depending on what it could be, I mean, I'm mentioning something about improving fisheries and wildlife habitats. So that could be something where we have access to the water that doesn't interfere with their systems. But there's also, let's see, cost of services and equipment to provide skills, development, and training for jobs created and retained within the municipality. So that could be something that's tied into, what am I thinking? Like a tech school type program, if that's what you're talking about for ecological studies.
Something like that, yeah. I don't know why people haven't thought of it before. They got all kinds of stuff all over. Like a guy, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, the guy bought like the first nuclear sub manufactured, the Albacore. He brought it in, big festival day. This was back in 1987, 88 that he did this. And it filled the town of Portsmouth, and it's still a park there for that first nuclear sub.
I've been on it.
Was it nuclear?
Small, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know it was nuclear.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone.
Well,
I think they de-nuked it before they made it a park, but you know, things like that when you have, but you, I don't know, because I'm part of the committee, I've been driving around town trying to learn what's here and there and what we have and what we can do.
I think Maine is, I think I read today that Maine is really getting to be quite known for its aquaculture. There could be some educational things, you know, the aquaculture center where you can buy an oyster that you, or an eel, or a shrimp, or a scallop.
And you got yourself.
Well, we've talked forever about having a clam shack.
Yes, that's
You know,
associated with agriculture.
So I'll look more into adding those to the project list for something to incorporate the railroad, and then something regarding tourism / ecological teachings.
and keep it as broad as possible.
Keep
obviously.
it as broad as possible.
I know we also talked about, you know, improving kind of parkland along the river and trying to buy up some more property. At one time, we were looking at that property at the corner of West Main and, you know, the property
That's right.
between
Just
Main
before
and
the bridge or just
Yeah.
after the bridge downstream. Yeah.
You're talking about a Riverwalk Trail?
yeah, Riverwalk Trail.
Yeah, I can probably expand that to talk about acquisition for the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
But I know we do mention the Riverwalk here.
Yeah, if that property came back on the market, that would be one we'd want to snap up.
All right, well, if that's the case, then I can move forward with the TIF and hopefully get that ready for the warrant in November.
Any other discussion on that?
Okay.
All right.
That's my phone.
That takes us to new business. First item was Waldenberg promotional video discussion.
Yeah, I think Jen sent the
Jen
video out.
started that up. Yep. Jen, you want to talk about that a little bit?
So
Not sure what you mean I started it up, but
what I recall from last meeting is you mentioned that we had this promotional video for.
right. And I think you guys found it.
Yep.
Yep.
Right? And then you mentioned it was many years out of date.
Yep.
Didn't say anything nice about the park.
Well, it was a different time. And it was the very first venture into that world.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
So,
So we did it using money from the LCRPC, the Ask Grant. That was how it was done. Just if anybody doesn't know.
yeah, and that's the money that I mentioned a moment ago. That's the funds we used for sending out all those surveys. This is an eligible use as well.
So you've had, I'm thinking that the question is, do we want to do this? Is that really the,
Or make updates to it.
do we want to have an economic development, an EDC pamphlet type video,
Right.
essentially.
It would be something you'd click on the town website.
Yes. It's a good idea, really.
Yeah, yeah.
We kind of talk about the businesses that are here. You know, I mean, we got a lot of interesting stuff.
Yep.
And with drones,
We've really grown.
are you talking about people? I'm talking about the things that fly, not the people.
Talking about the drones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do an awful lot of stuff fast with a drone.
And we got a new artist moving into Friendship Street School who does this kind of stuff. I mean,
It might be interesting.
he might be interested in helping out with that.
We reach out to him on that.
He's gonna have all kinds of requests coming his way.
But, you know, with the Waldo up and running,
Yes.
you know, Odd Alewives doing terrific.
Mhm. Not to
You know,
mention
the
the
eel
eels.
business, I mean, what's going on? I mean, we got a lot of good stuff that we could talk about.
Yep.
And a video is a nice way to communicate that to other industries. You know, George, to your point about, you know, aquaculture, I mean, that's a great message.
Yeah.
Aquaculture centered, you know.
Land-based aquaculture, which is less controversial than taking someone's
Than
intertitles on.
building a salmon farm or whatever.
Yeah. Unless you, yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I don't know how we do it. I'm
I
not
think it's a really
that tech savvy on something like that, but I think it's a great idea.
All right. Any other thoughts from committee members? Anyone against the idea?
I'd actually like to hear everybody's input on this. Bob, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea, and I think we ought to probably hire someone who's professional,
Yep, I
find
agree.
some grant money.
Yeah, of course. You're
Max.
on that one.
Get a budget together.
I'll find a college student looking for a senior project.
Or a college student, yes.
That's not a
Why
bad
not?
idea.
That's
Actually, it's
great
not a
idea.
bad idea.
Yeah, like in a Mid-Coast School of Technology, they do projects.
We have professional filmmakers in this town who might be drafted into that effort.
Do you want to feel that out?
Sorry,
Do you want to see if that's a possibility?
I would like to see if it's a possibility.
We hired somebody in the seaweed business, the Maine Seaweed Council, and he was professional, did a great job. And we were able to make a 7-minute version and a 4-minute, you know, we could tailor it how we wanted to. Very, very good. It made me realize that there's a big difference between a professional and a not professional.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What did it cost, George? Do you remember?
It was like $2,000 or $3,000.
That's very reasonable.
Well, and the guy part of it was he was committed to what we were committed to.
Okay.
So you got a deal. You got
Yeah,
the deal.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a son who's a film editor too.
Ruben, what do you think?
You're going to get what you pay for. That's nothing against students or people that want to donate their time. But again, we want to be, you know, careful with the resources we have. When it comes to any kind of project like that, anytime you get an artist that's trying to get, you know, anytime you offer someone something for exposure or experience, it's never going to be the level of quality as a product you paid for.
Patty?
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
Sonia, you want to give us your input?
Oh, on that, I think it's a good idea. I was thinking the Mid-Coast School of Technology, they'll come up with the program budget for you. They print banners, they do all kinds of civic jobs. They built the bandstand for Thomaston, etc. Yeah, they use it as a teaching opportunity, and they have a big graphic design department for the students. They've just started up the new school year. You can contact them, and there's like on the website, there's a project bid site. You can put your information in.
I almost am embarrassed to ask this, but where are they?
Rockland?
They're at downtown Rockland.
Built a new school there.
Amazing new school.
Oh, now I know. Yeah. Now I know.
I knew you'd.
Have you been in there to see like the
I had a
mechanic
tour.
area?
I went in there on a tour, interestingly, to try and get some focus on they should coordinate with local businesses so that they would be training people for jobs specifically.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for years. When people go there and put a proposal forward, they developed a nationally recognized program for firefighting years ago because we needed so many firefighters. but they're very willing to do that, and they've been doing that for a long time.
So Jen, actually that might have been her phone going off.
Oh,
Sorry, it's all right. It's not a number I'm going to answer.
What are your thoughts on the updates for the video, Jen?
I think it's a great idea. I think that things have changed, and I think there's a lot for Waldenberg to be proud of.
All right.
so it seems, so I think it's a wonderful idea. I think linking it on our website's a great idea. It's almost kind of like the brochure where I think we need like a separate group that could work with whoever we decide we're, if it's a local technology school, maybe that's a low funding, like a easy move ahead. If we have to hire somebody, that's a longer discussion, I think, but.
I'll have some more information by next meeting. George?
Okay.
Thinking, I was outside the box. There's a box. On our Ocean Organics website, you could click on the thing about harvesting seaweed. On the Waldenboro Business Park one, you can see what a drone did. In fact, you could do it right now if you want, but there's a drone thing. Where I was going with that is, if the town site had different things you could click on, that would mean that they were just, put mine in, put his in, put those, then there would be an array of things, and the name on it that you click would give you some idea. Like, I think I'd like to see that.
So I think that's a really good idea. The challenge with that is it's not message driven. Where I think if we were doing a theme video on doing business in Waldenboro, there'd be an underlying message of set up your business here.
The ones that I'm just talking about, they're positive. They don't spit, like the one about seaweed would just be reassuring that there's something interesting going on with seaweed.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. If there's a single message that you were going to try and get out, you'd want to have a paid for nice one.
Well, I remember before COVID, the big message we were trying to do was like Waldenboro Works or Working in Waldenboro. You remember when we were getting the tip, the brochure?
Bob had the phrase of the year.
Like, so I think that's just the natural.
We were the hub of the Mid-Coast was another.
Yeah, that was going to be I think that's just the progression. The exact message and everything would be determined when we can actually get prices and ideas for what this would be.
And the people who do the films are very good at saying this is, I think this is your message.
Yeah.
You want to be sure too.
Jen, how long was your film, your video?
I didn't do it. It was a professional that we hired. If you guys haven't seen it, it's more than just, I don't know, it's 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
I watched it. I just couldn't remember how long it was. 5 minutes? So
it's not that long.
Yeah, no.
You want to capture people's attention long enough, but still.
Right.
I think it's a great idea.
So
Yep.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's a way, Jen, of involving the WBA in this effort.
If we can reconstruct the WBA, then maybe.
Might be an incentive to reconstruct it.
Deconstructed.
Well,
give it something to do.
Might be discussed later. So I'll reach out to Midco School of Tech and some other different options and see what we can get for some different options for this.
And that, like I say, I think the way to do it is there'll be some of us, maybe a handful, 3 or 4, go offline with this, whoever we decide. If it's,
I would suggest 1 or 2 committee members, because once you get to 3, then it's technically a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Or an ad hoc committee. So that's just me, though.
We'll see how much interest there is.
We'll see the interest. Yeah.
All right. All right. And the other new business. Any more discussion on the video?
Just me real quick. If you're going to include something, add potential. Like show we can develop in this area. We have this if you're interested. Like there's room to grow potential. Not just it's like what we have, but there's also room to grow. Like in the business park, we have 5 spots just ready and waiting, that kind of a thing.
Fair point.
Yep, that's a good one. All right, potential industries in Waldeboro.
I don't know if we want to do that because that was what John.
Oh, John wanted to talk about, okay.
Where everyone came here with 2 different industry ideas that they want to see grow in the area.
Okay, so maybe we'll kick that.
We'll do it next
We'll kick that down the road.
Because it's also 8:20. We haven't even talked about EV charging stations.
All right. So we're, any comments from the committee? Anybody have a comment, discussion point? Anything else they'd like to discuss?
Whether now or for next
No.
meeting. Okay.
No.
What about charging stations?
Charging stations.
Yeah, I could get
EV.
that. Yeah, I should have probably done this during the town update.
Well, let's do it right now. EV.
So Efficiency Maine has announced another EV charging station program. I think people remember back in like 2019, 2018, they had a program where they would fund up to $5,000 for each level 2 charger. We didn't apply back then because there wasn't as big of a need back then. Now there are a lot more electric vehicles on the road, and even if it's not specifically in Waldeboro, there's just a lot of electric vehicles going up and down during the summer. And as someone who lives in Damascotta, those Clipper Creek chargers that are in the downtown, there's always at least one vehicle there whenever I'm there. So it has become a bigger need. So the Efficiency Maine, with the Arpa funding that Governor Mills is using for the Maine Jobs Recovery Act, about 80% of a charge station can potentially be covered. And if it's at a municipal lot, it can be, because I think it was Maine Conservation Group is also pitching in some funding, up to 90% of the cost can be covered.
That's the cost for installation?
Everything.
Well,
So we'd have to come up with 10%.
But my real question is, you swipe a card or they're not free?
They're not free. So we would have to install the charge. We would have to pay for the hardware and the actual installation of the chargers.
That's the obligation, right?
Yeah. And I've been speaking with Revision about this, and they say that would be, this is the time to do it if we want it, because 9%.
I have a plug-in hybrid right now that I love.
I'll talk to you more about that. I mean,
The math is just amazing about how much cheaper it is to run on your garage. I got 50 miles on my electric plug-in. And the electric mile is much cheaper than the gas mile.
And that's probably a high percentage of your trips of that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Going to the grocery or whatever.
50 miles, you go to Rockland and back.
Yeah.
So with the charging stations that are envisioned from Revision, we might do what's called the smart level 2 charger. So what is in Thomaston and Damascotta is the Clipper Creek, where you just grab it and you plug it in, and the town's paying for the electricity that's going to go in there. But the smart charger is one where we can set the rate, so we can recoup some of the payments. We could also install an idle fee. So if someone's there for an extra 10 minutes and they don't need the charging anymore, we can give a $10 penalty that the town gets to keep.
I like that.
We can also set it
I'm not
whether,
sure I like that.
well, those are just,
It's all about turnover, man.
they're all options. We don't have to have them.
I don't mind the charge. I don't mind paying for the electricity, but
The idle fee.
idle
We don't
fees-
have to have it. But
What if someone's waiting in line?
But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that's the difference between the smart and the regular chargers. The smart charger, we get that option. With the regular charger, we don't get that option. And we also get an LED screen. So it's like the gas stations that have like something promoted, like an ad. So if we have this video, we can have a quick little 30-second clip there while people are charging their cars.
What is the,
I like that.
on a practical side, I know that when I plug my RAV into the garage overnight, it's charged the next morning at a 110 just outlet.
Yeah.
When you get into those chargers, how fast are they?
Well, it's a level 2.
And does your battery explode if you go too fast? I mean, I can't.
No.
They're designed not to, obviously.
Yeah,
but I just,
slow down.
it's
worth asking.
It's how fast.
Good to know.
Well,
No, replacing that battery is kind of expensive.
well, it's a level 2, so it's faster than a home charger. I think 1 to 2 hours get you a
That's what
full
I've
charge. 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah.
What's the fastest?
The level
Level
3,
three.
Why don't we get level 3?
they're expensive.
Yeah, but people will come to Waldeboro if we get level 3.
A level 3 is maybe $50,000 for
Okay.
one plug.
I think if the level 2 pays off, could look at adding a level 3.
But you know what I'm saying? If somebody's looking at a map, where
I
am I
have
gonna
one
be?
question on that.
I could
Yeah.
spend 2 hours
So-
in Damascata,
so-
or I could spend
Hold
20
on.
minutes in Waldeboro.
Sonia has a question.
Yes, Sonia?
Yeah, can our grid support a charging station? I remember saying we have very limited on the current transformer we have for Waldeboro. Aren't we having issues with the amount of electricity on it? Would a charging station cause problems?
No, so
No.
our limits on the on the electrical grid is that we can't have any more solar or renewables hooked up to it.
Production,
Production, that's it. But we're fine when it comes to,
consumption.
yeah, as George said, yeah, George has it right.
Okay.
Can you make money with a level 3 charger?
Yes, because it would be the same as the level 2.
I mean, I get 50,000, sounds like a lot of money, but if it attracts people and it generates revenue.
It's not just it's $50,000. I think with the smart charger, with all the bells and whistles, that's maybe 15,000. That's an estimate for me. With all the incentives we're going to get from Efficiency Maine for this, that smart charger that gets to do a lot of work for us is going to cost maybe $2,000, $3,000 in the town, maybe.
What does the person do for 2 hours while their Tesla's charging up?
They can, that's just it.
They can go down to the Perch and have a sandwich or a latte. They can go over to the Narrows and have lunch.
So, but it's gonna be within walking distance of
Right.
something to do.
Yeah, so it can't be here.
It can't be here.
No. It could be in the Coon parking lot
It could be in the Coon parking
or
lot.
the library.
Could be the library. We would want something in the downtown. That's
Just as a crazy thought, part of the joy of my plug-in car is I've invested in part of a solar array on one of my kids' buildings. So my electric bills are now 0, which is pretty nice.
And your gas bill's almost there.
And my gas bill is almost 0. Is there a way Sylvania's slabitude could be turned into the electricity that would, I mean, it wouldn't, you put it in and take it back out, but I mean,
you put in a solar farm at Sylvania, and then that would hook up to the
that's
electric charging is what you're asking?
Well, yeah, but except if we have a problem with the transformer and the grid,
Right.
then we can't produce anymore. And I don't think there's any way to go directly from the cement slab covered with panels to your Tesla, but
That without
Not unless
so
you have,
much battery.
not
Right.
unless
Yeah,
you
right.
made Sylvania a dedicated charging area where you have the solar panels there and it hooks up to this big battery that then goes to those charging
yeah,
stations.
he's right. It would be a serious,
It'd be a
batteries.
7-figure bill too.
It would be big. We're going higher and higher with this thing.
That's why I said a box.
On the same question, so I think this is a great idea. Whatever happened to the parking lot behind the pharmacy?
The Worcester parking lot.
Yeah.
I think it's just easier to call it the Worcester parking lot.
Okay, whatever happened to the Worcester park?
That is still in litigation.
Because that would be a really perfect spot.
I really wanted that, and that could have been the charging station spot, but because we don't, we can't do that, unfortunately. Well, we could, it's just we wouldn't get as many incentives.
It's just the timing.
It's just the timing. And for the level 3, long term, I'd like to have a level 3 where we eventually have our community center.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just because then it also benefits people who are going to the medical offices as well.
So when you're talking about in the historic village, so the library would the library work?
It could be anything that's owned by anything that's a public entity. So it could be the library.
Okay.
It could be the post office if we wanted to.
The library would be good.
Not the schools.
Next to what was Dr. Bowden's office, excuse me, the key bank that became an art thing and now it's a residence, I think, and the Christmas tree is right up on the top of the hill and they say, no, don't park here anymore. You know, right there.
Across from the drugstore,
Yes,
across from the pharmacy.
that's a $3 You could have 3 chargers there.
But it's not publicly owned, George.
Well, no, but
Right.
But behind it, that parking lot behind it,
Well, I'm saying, is there a way that you could get that? Because it's not much good for anything other than a Christmas tree and 2 parking spaces.
the other option would be across the street from the Taction Building, which is town, that street is town owned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. I'm going to be with Revision next week, going to these different sites and seeing what their thoughts on it.
But you really, I think you'd really want it maybe even level with, and certainly close to, a couple of places to eat and shop.
Right, and that's why the main options were the library, the Coon parking lot, and even.
How about the town landing?
It's a long walk to.
It's not really.
It's not really.
It's not a good walk because there isn't a sidewalk.
Right.
Right.
It's also up.
You'd have to do something about that, but.
And I also wonder, I think I will need the blessing from the Shellfish Committee on that one. Because that's going to take away parking spots for them, probably.
Oh, it's huge.
I'm just saying.
What about the picnic area across from Hannaford's?
That's an
a
eligible
walk.
spot. Anything that's municipally owned that's not a school would be eligible.
Yep.
So, but I'll
All right.
look into that, and I'll see if Efficiency Main's planning anything with level 3, because I thought they were supposed to by now, but I guess not.
I'm just thinking if we had it and none of the other villages around us did, it would make us the go-to spot.
It would.
And if we're just another level 2, I'd probably pick Damascotta myself.
Well, the advantage of the level 2 though is it's an hour. You're going to have time to walk somewhere and do something and then walk back.
Yeah.
And it'll create a little more business.
Yep. Oh, no, I understand that too. Yep.
That's all I had. And we're also 30 past the usual time,
All right.
so I don't want to drag it too long.
All right. So I think that's it. We're unless there's any other discussion,
Move to adjourn.
we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.